Hi everyone, it's Zoe here from Living with a Sleeve. I'm having a few technical difficulties today. Thank you to Tracy for letting me know that you couldn't hear me and that my voice was staticky. Hopefully this has fixed it. So please comment below if you are having trouble hearing me, and if you are, I will try again, try something else. So today I wanted to talk to you. It's another one of my weekly Facebook Lives. I wanted to talk to you about the top reasons that I see for weight regain. It's really common to gain some weight after surgery, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but knowing what those top reasons for gaining weight are can help you to either avoid it or to get back on track and to start perhaps losing a few of those kilos that you've gained back after surgery as well. So I'm going to focus on 10 things, but I don't want it to make you feel like, I'm chastising you. So instead, I'm just going to make you aware of what they are and then give you some options or some solutions to help you to navigate those habits. So the first one I think is grazing. And usually after the surgery, people have a tendency towards savory foods like chips or shapes or cheese and crackers. And often this is quite different to what people used to graze on before. If they had a sweet tooth, sometimes that converts to a savory tooth. Some people may have sweet cravings after the surgery as well. So this advice kind of applies to sweet or savory. Instead of grazing in between your meals, the best option is to go for those nutritious meals, so 3 meals a day. If you graze in between, it means that you're eating a lot more calories than you need because you're really never feeling full and satiated, which means that in between you're kind of just looking for the next snack, the next snack, the next snack. And on top of that, grazing in between meals can mean that you don't actually eat your main meals properly. So I often have clients and we talk about how they might get into the habit of grazing in the afternoon, which means that then they don't feel like dinner. And then because they haven't eaten dinner, then they end up grazing at night while they're watching TV. So if this sounds like you, instead of going for those really highly processed snacks like chips or chocolate or shapes, for example, try something, if you like savory, that's going to give you the salty flavor, like a slice or two of cheese or some pickles or a few crackers with salsa or some veggie sticks with dip, or something even like a tin of tuna, something that's going to give you that savory taste without overdoing it on the calories, and something that will also fill you up for the long term. So the key here is to portion out your snack. Make sure that your snack is about half of what your meal would normally be, which is around about half a cup. And make sure as well that you concentrate when you eat, so that you portion out your snack, you sit down, you pay attention rather than eating on the run, because when you eat on the run, it's really easy for those foods to disappear without you even kind of registering that you've eaten them. So that's my number one reason. The second reason that I see is when people drink with meals. That can be a problem for weight regain, again, because it interrupts the satiety that you get from your main meals. So after surgery, after a sleeve, your stomach is like a little pipe. If you drink and eat at the same time, there's not enough room in there for you to eat your normal portion of your main meal. And so therefore, because the water is in there, you actually end up eating less, which means that once that food has moved through your stomach, you feel hungrier sooner than you would have if you had eaten the full portion of your main meal. The other thing that it can do is it can actually mean that your stomach empties faster. So again, it's sort of like washing food through a pipe. And if you're doing that, you're going to feel hungrier sooner than you would if you hadn't eaten and drunk at the same time. So what I would recommend is that about 5 or 10 minutes before your meal, you stop drinking. And then you eat, you focus on your meal for 20 to 30 minutes, and then you leave about 20 to 30 minutes after your meal before you have another drink. It means also, though, that you really need to focus on getting your fluids in between your meals so that you know that you can stay hydrated throughout the day. All right, the third thing that I wanted to talk about is also to do with drinks, but it's about drinking calories. Our bodies and our brains are really, really bad at adjusting for calories that we have drunk. So, for example, if you have a big juice in between a meal, or a protein shake, or a glass of milk, or a soft drink, for example, studies show us that we don't adjust by eating less at our next meal and eating less calories at our next meal. And that's why sugary drinks in particular can really add a lot of calories without adding very many nutrients. And then also we end up eating our meals on top, which means overall over the day, we have eaten far more calories than we actually need. So this goes for protein shakes too. Protein shakes and milk and fruit juices. So sometimes those healthier drinks, we also want to be careful of them. So the biggest thing here, I think, is if you're really struggling with your protein, add a clear tasteless protein powder to a cup of tea or a bottle of water rather than squeezing in multiple protein shakes throughout the day, because that's going to just add a lot of calories that you probably don't actually need. This is, of course, I'm talking long term after the surgery. In the initial phases, things are a little bit different. So I will talk about that at a later date. So instead of drinking in between your meals, I really, really encourage you to focus on getting your nutrients in at your three main meals. Have a snack if you need it in between, and then really focus in between those meals and snacks on drinking your fluid so that you maintain your hydration and you get the nutrition that you need without going overboard on the calories. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is a little bit controversial, I think, and it's skipping meals. So skipping meals can slow your weight loss, and sometimes that might seem a bit counterintuitive because you think, well, if I'm skipping a meal, doesn't that mean that I am eating less calories over the day, so therefore I should lose more weight quickly? And it doesn't actually work like that. So your body is very, very clever. It does not like going into starvation because it wants to stay alive. I guess that makes sense, right? So if you're skipping meals, your body then goes, oh God, I don't know when I'm going to get my next meal, so I better hold on to everything that I possibly can. And you actually become really good at storing energy rather than using energy, and your metabolism will slow to adjust for that lack of nutrient intake and calorie intake. So I'm not saying you need to eat every 3 hours, but you do need to make sure, especially after a sleeve, that you have your 3 main meals a day and snacks if you're hungry. The other big positive about having your 3 main meals a day is if you're not doing that after a sleeve, given the portion sizes that you can eat, you're putting yourself at a really high risk of nutrient deficiency. And I don't like seeing people with an iron deficiency or a vitamin D or B12 deficiency that we could have prevented just by eating 3 really good healthy meals a day and taking our supplements. So the fifth one that I wanted to talk about is when people avoid solid meats. And again, this kind of comes back, all of these really link back to satiety and feeling satisfied with your food, feeling satisfied in between your meals. And the reason that eating solid meats helps with this is because the texture of it takes longer to digest, and so you actually stay fuller for longer in between your meals. If you're always choosing pureed meats or even mince, for example, or really soft foods like fish, you're going to be hungrier sooner after your meal than than if you're having a solid meat like a piece of chicken or a little bit of red meat or lamb or pork, for example. So remember, again, we're really going for limiting that snacking and that grazing in between your meals. So make sure that your meals are really balanced and you've got half protein, half veggies. And once you're sort of 8 weeks or more after surgery, you really want to try to go for those solid proteins. The next one is also related to protein, and it's about trying to get too much protein. So sometimes people after surgery really focus too much on the protein, and what can happen is that they're trying to cram protein in at every opportunity. In between their meals, they're drinking, protein waters and protein shakes, and they're trying to make sure that they're only eating protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and their snacks all have protein in it. But what happens is you actually miss out on the other nutrients that you need, and you end up eating too much overall. So the ASMBS, who are the people that kind of are the gurus and produce the guidelines around obesity and weight loss surgery, they recommend 60 to 80 grams of protein each day. And I'm not saying that you should count grams of protein, but it can be really helpful just to track 1 or 2 days every few weeks just to see how much protein you are getting. If you stick to your 3 meals a day and you're getting about half to 2/3 of your meal is protein, and you're having a snack that contains protein if you're hungry, you should be doing just fine. So don't overdo the protein. You can also overdo the healthy snacks, and this is my next one. Eating when you're not hungry, no matter how healthy it is, isn't a good habit to get into. And this goes back to grazing that we talked about in the very beginning. A really good example of this might be something like fruit or nuts. And nuts especially, whilst they're a really healthy food, they have good fats, they've got a little bit of protein, they've got good amounts of fiber, vitamins and minerals, they are really high in calories. And they're really moreish, so you can just keep eating and eating and eating your nuts. And I think it's really important that we know that a portion size of nuts is really small, so it's about 6 to 10 almonds. And if you're going to have nuts, it's probably better to put them in as part of a snack. We might have a few almonds and a bit of fruit, so you get a mix of protein and fiber from the fruit, or maybe a few nuts and some yogurt. Or if maybe you want to include them in a meal, so maybe it's a salad with some steak and some nuts or seeds sprinkled over the top, so that you get the protein from the steak, you get the fiber without the calories from the salad, and then the nuts are like a little topper. Okay, so just make sure that you mix it up. And I think this goes for healthy snacks across the board. You don't want to get too focused on only eating 1 or 2 options. You want to eat a wide variety of snacks and have lots of different choices so that your body gets the nutrients that it needs. Number 8. And this one is a little bit controversial as well. This is a pet peeve of mine. I feel so upset and sorry for people that have had no dietitian support or education throughout their surgical journey. So often I will have people email me or comment and say that they didn't learn all of this stuff when they had their surgery or when they were going through the process of surgery. And of course, if you haven't been taught, if you are not sure, or you've been given the wrong information, of course you're going to be at a greater risk of regaining weight in the long term. So what I would really encourage you to do is, if you haven't found a dietitian, is find one that you trust, that you get along with, that's somebody that can help to guide you through this journey, because that is so, so important. And this brings me to point 9, and that's when the family is not on board. And this is, again, really tricky, but the people that do the best after surgery are the ones that are really in touch with their team, and the ones that have good supportive friends and family that are helping them to make those lifelong habit changes, because they are lifelong habit changes. You can't just rely on the surgery to do the changing for you. We actually need to work on the mental side and the habit, so that the changes from the surgery can be maximized. So getting your family on board, being open with them, having conversations with them, and if your family isn't the one that is going to be supportive, finding that friend, finding somebody else within a Facebook group that you can talk to, that is going to be super, super important to keeping you A, sane, but B, keeping the weight loss off in the long term. And the last one after surgery is a bit different. So the reason number 10 is, I think, quite often people assume that after surgery they're going to feel sick if they eat sugary foods. Maybe they'll get dumping syndrome. Maybe they'll feel uncomfortable if they eat too much. And whilst many people do get these feelings, many people don't. So if you do get those strong feelings of uncomfortable or nausea, or diarrhea, for example, that's going to be a really good motivation for you to stop eating those foods that cause the problems. And often after surgery, that's those sweet, sugary foods that cause those problems, or really rich foods. So that's great. It's like your body is pushing you back towards a more plain, more simple, and healthier, lower fat option, lower calorie options. But if you don't get those, then you're going to have to find your own motivation. And this can be tricky. I need you to sit down and have a think about, why did I do this surgery? Put those motivations somewhere that you can see them. Some people like to think about their future selves and being accountable to their future selves, but finding some way to stay motivated with those long-term lifestyle changes is going to be really, really important, because without that, you're going to slip back into those old habits that we had before the surgery. So that's it. They're my 10 top reasons. So the first one was grazing. The second one was drinking with meals. The third one was drinking calories. The fourth was skipping meals. The fifth was avoiding solid meats. The sixth was trying to get too much protein. The seventh was overdoing your healthy snacks. 8 and 9 were lack of support or struggle with family. And 10 was a lack of side effects post-op. So if you've got any questions for me, please pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you. I love to hear from you all, so let me know. If there's another topic that you'd like me to cover in another one of these Facebook Lives, I'll be doing them every Thursday, so please just let me know and I will get onto it as soon as I can. Otherwise, have a lovely Thursday afternoon and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.